So in a few minutes, a customer and former classmate of mine, we shared a class. We didn't graduate together, but we were in an art history class. And he will join us and talk about pens and maybe about his career as an animator in Hollywood, or California anyway. And Juicy, you have not missed anything. I just turned this on a minute ago, so nothing has been missed. I have a feeling he's probably going to be right on time, so he may be here at exactly 6 o'clock. I just filled these pens up, so I should be able to not have any ink issues. I was going to do this outside, but my brothers are out there working on a sail for a sailboat, and they're making noise. Well, I don't know how long this stream will last. I forgot where you are from, Juicy. France, England, Europe. Where in Europe are you? England. Just make sure he didn't send me an email saying he can't be here. Cornwall. I was just listening to an episode of My Word, which was a BBC radio show that I loved when it was live 40 years ago. And they're so funny, you Brits. If you have never heard it, go to YouTube and type in BBC My Word, and I think you'll enjoy it. I'm going to get myself a domestic malt beverage. I'll be right back. Leinenkugel Summer Shandy. Where is this manufactured? Milwaukee, Chippewa Falls. Ooh.
Are you going to be working my hair? Here?
What?
You're going to be working my hair?
Yeah, I will be.
I'll be on here in a second.
Okay, that's fine.
Here's your.
Oh, okay.
My sister-in-law and my niece are talking on the phone behind us, but they are moving.
I have to open the wine. It's really important.
Wine has to be opened.
And, yes, hang on.
Well, I'm sure that we just, as Americans can do, we just take what we want from other countries. She said shandies were, she thought that was an English thing.
Oh, I just literally said, what did I do with my glasses?
They're on your head. Yeah, that's why.
Clearly, it's a great idea to open a bottle of wine.
Lemonade and beer recipe. Well, I guess that's what it is because it does taste rather citrusy, doesn't it? So there's 3 people now in the room. Count them. Is one of them the guest of honor? I've been meaning to draw with a pen and some watercolors, but I just have not gotten around to doing it yet. 'Tis I, 'tis Todd Merrill. I'm looking for a particular guest to come on, and he should be here shortly. He's an animator in California, and he has done some work with the Simpsons, and he and the Simpsons crew got a Peabody Award, and he also got an Emmy for something, this guy. So the 2 pens I sold him, he had propped up next to his Peabody Award. When people type the word Al, of course it looks like AI because we don't bother with serifs anymore. So it's always hard to know who's who and what's what. Rescue Squirrel just sent me a letter. He's writing a history of a local church in North Dakota, which is that way. No, it's that way, about 300 miles at least. And he just sent me some information about it. It'll be interesting to read when I get around to doing that. It looks like he's looking at old ledger books, journals from the period. Well, I wish it would take away some of the humans that are on this planet. I'll make a list. He did talk about wanting to do or I sent him a suggestion that he could have me be a guest on his program, his channel. He just had Ms. Marilyn on it last week, and they talked. Mainly, it was Marilyn doing the talking about calligraphy and stuff, and Lasky wanted to know what we can talk about. He and I can talk about, and I'm trying to think of a topic that we both share. And I was thinking it could be how our collections evolve over time. And I know his has made specific changes in it. He was mainly a modern pen person, and now he's focusing more on vintage. He also used to like pens that were made in the Cold War communist countries, and I don't think he has that focus now. An ink guy, hello. Yeah, that might be interesting, ink guy. And I think I had you on my channel once, didn't I? You were a guest on one of my things, I think. Here's step in, bear with me. I have to give you the link, Al. Hold on. Copy link. Paste. So click on that link, and then once it's going, turn off anything that has YouTube on it, because we'll get away from the echo. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Wasky and I decide to talk about. And I think I might do what I'm doing here with Al, is have the camera going down to the table. We don't need to see necessarily what people look like. I think that works fine in some cases, but I think in most cases you're interested in the pens, not my face. So and Al and I talked about doing this thing for quite some time, and I don't think we came up with a plan, but talk about all those Russian girlfriends. Yes. Yes. They are fun to play with. Here's Al. Okay, Al. Add to stage. And then I have to do it this way.
Okay.
Hello, you.
Hello. We have not
So-
crossed paths since 1978. So,
Well,
can you hear me?
We're quite, yes, I can. We're crossing them now.
Well, should we explain how it is we happen to have
You
met?
can explain. You have better brain cells than
I was taking an art history class, one of two in a row, and in one of those, there was a group of people sitting in front of me in a large theater, and someone I noticed was taking out their notebook and a pen and was being able to write with thick and thin circles as a practice to lead into the class. And I was fascinated because I'd never seen a fountain pen that worked like that before.
chances.
And
But let me interrupt for 1 second. Chances are, Al,
it's just your name.
that's all I did. I didn't take any notes. I just made circles.
I'm going to hit this off, and that might make it easier. Yeah.
Anyway,
So,
so back to the
so I one day I just couldn't bear anymore. I said, what is it you're using, and where did you find this tool? Because I've never seen anybody use such a thing before. And you explained that you went to Minneapolis to a particular hotel where Fanny's Good Service Pen Shop was located,
it was
and that,
it was the Plymouth building. I don't think it was a hotel.
oh, okay, could be.
It may have been, but at one point. But anyway, yes. So
It was sort of you described it as kind of in the lobby of
yeah,
a
yeah.
particular thing. And I said, well, I've never even seen these things anywhere. What would you expect to pay for them? And you said it depended on whether Fanny was in failing health and going into the hospital, in which she would be trying to get rid of all of her worldly goods, or if she had just come out of the hospital and had bills to pay and would only show you one pen and charge you a lot. And and I thought it was just the kind of quirky uh, kind of character I like rude waiters or
Mhm.
people who presume on you. And I thought I'd love to meet her, but the chances of my getting it to Minneapolis anytime soon was impossible. So I kind of wrote it off altogether. However, I went in and had a whole career over the last 40 years, and I've been able to stop and sort through boxes of stuff that I've accumulated, and I came across an announcement for a graduate show that you put on in
Yeah,
Madison.
yeah.
Was it a master show?
Masters show. Yeah.
Yeah, you were dressed in a very fine regalia. You were posed next to a mechanical thing and a kind of femur sort of thing.
Oh,
Maybe.
oh, that was a show I did after I was moved to Boston, but
Ah,
but I I used to have nice clothes. They all shrank. I don't understand how wool can shrink. But
I, I'm in complete sympathy. But it occurred to me like I didn't really know your name. I recognized your face from the drawing class or the art history
art
class,
history class, yeah.
and thought at this point I have to look up and see if people survived this long. And I was delighted to see that not only had you lasted, that you've managed to put on a lot of videos about pens. And I've been watching them, and that's about the most I know about pens is from you.
Well,
So,
you if you watch all of my videos, you might have 4 or 5 facts. The rest are just opinions. And, but but and I'm as Todd Merrill is very good at correcting me, not out of he does it very politely. Oh, I'm sure you meant to say Walter Schaefer, not William Schaefer, and things like that
mm,
in the comments. But if I pick up a pen like this and if I say this is from the 30s, I feel that's good enough. There's
yeah,
some people that'll look at this pen and know exactly this is from 1932 or something. So I'm happy being uh, ignorant about things that I don't really care about. I like the way the pens write.
Hmm.
So yeah, and Todd Merrill says, "I hope I'm polite." Uh, so uh, then I got a rather lovely long email from you. You wanted to buy a couple of pens.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how long did it take me to put them in the mail to you? Weeks and weeks and months. But
Uh, I'm on kind of slow time at this
okay,
point, so it it seemed perfectly reasonable. I'm not a fast turnaround kind of guy at this point.
okay. I sent him a Eversharp Skyline with a nice rubbery, flexible nib, which is what he was looking for.
Yeah.
And I also sent him a narrow, thin Schaefer balance pen with I think a feather touch nib. It could have been a number 3 nib or some other kind of nib.
Mm.
And because it was a really nice contrast to the Skyline. It was very fine and it had just a little tiny bit of spring to it. And I figured,
Hmm.
if you grab both of them, wrote with them, you'd immediately fall in love with the Skyline. But I was thinking there might be an opportunity where you think, now that other pen with the really fine nib, let me see what that'll do. So
Hmm.
you use them both and
And
enjoy
that's what
both.
happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were going to use these for drawing, just for making art for yourself?
Yes. The reason I've been well, actually, what I could do is show you the pens I've had
Okay.
and how I've gone through them.
Okay.
So, how about if I do this and then
Turn the
flip,
go to settings and turn the camera so it faces down. Use
uh,
the back camera.
camera. Oh dear. What did I? Oh,
No, that's fine. That's part of what you do. You under settings, you'll see you can change the camera to
oh,
back camera, I think.
settings, mirror. No, that's the other side.
Yeah.
Um. Oh, hang on. Back camera. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's try that.
Yeah.
And
Perfect. Look at that. You're
yeah. Thank you. Your idea about
the
using
Encyclopedia Britannica is perfect.
it worked. I'm quite impressed. Well, um, I liked comics as a kid, and then kind of stepped away from them as a young teenager. But I was swept up in politics and the anti-war movement in Vietnam, and underground comics and counterculture sorts of things. And it seemed like everybody went through this phase where they were taking, oh, you know what? Oh, it's opposite. It's opposite land. Hmm.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay. Well,
There might be another setting you can make where it's
let's do that
not
and see
opposite land.
setting mirror. That makes more sense. Yeah. Okay. Um,
I mean,
so
hold the pen in your right hand.
yes.
That's correct.
Yes.
It's I mean, it looks good to me, and it'll look good on the computer. If you see it backwards, that's okay.
Okay. Well, to get back,
Yeah.
a lot of underground cartoonists were using rapidographs,
Yeah. Ooh.
and which you can get the ink flow going by shaking it.
Yeah.
And it's great if you want to make consistent lines, but
Or
I can't.
or imitate a Jackson Pollock, depending on what.
Yeah, you can do that. But I went into animation, and animation is drawn on paper, but then there's a point where you have to take and put your drawing down and put a piece of celluloid over the top of it
Yeah.
and trace the outlines
Yeah.
in order to then turn it over and put the paint on it. which
Oh,
is kind
yeah.
of like an Elmer's glue vinyl. You don't
Okay.
actually stroke it. You have to kind of puddle it and push it up
Yeah.
toward the edges,
Oh,
and it has to be consistent because you may have like 100 drawings. And
yeah.
if you have a pen that makes the same width line, that's kind of what you want.
Yeah.
The problem was that because the end is a cylinder,
Yeah.
if you're drawing with it at an angle, it rubs against the acetate and
Scratches it.
it scratches it off. So as you draw with it, it gradually gets thicker and thicker. So you're constantly dealing with throwing out the old pen nibs and stuff.
Yeah.
So once I was working with this, and someone saw that I was using it in my sketchbook and said, "Man, why are you using a honky drafting tool? That's just like not really cool. You should use something else." And I was kind of up a limb about that, but I went and was working in London and on a project, and someone said that there's this guy named Mr. Poole, and he has a pen shop. And I thought, oh, I got to go see him. And I said, what kind of pen could you recommend that I could use to draw with? And he said, oh, this Tropen would be just a great thing to use. And Tropen. And it was, I liked it because you could fill it with the,
It looks like a pelican, is it?
it looks kind of like it. Yeah. But
Because in grad school, what I used to do my drawings with in grad school was a Pelican 140, and rather than my vintage fountain pens to draw with. So anyway,
this actually is a Tropen. It's a German pen
yeah, I
that,
know. Yes, yeah.
and I really like this. And I asked Mr. Poole at the time, do you have many clients who are cartoonists? And he was, he reached under the counter and pulled out this notebook and opened it up. And there were probably 200 letters from cartoonists.
Oh wow.
The
Okay.
first one was Ralph Steadman, and it was a picture of Ralph Steadman with an elastic band tying off his arm, and he's pulling it with his teeth and taking and jabbing a pen into his vein
Into his veins, yes.
and saying, "Dare his nibs." That was his nickname, his
Yeah.
nibs. I've run out of Alfred nibs. Please send a gross more. And this was happening page after page. Ralph Steadman, Ronald Searle, all these British guys. He was like the guy who in the 1950s bought up all the available pen nibs that he could
Mm.
find. And that was his business on Drury Lane.
Yeah.
And and I have boxes of his pen nibs, and
that's great.
some were just amazing because, you know, like one they would make interesting. Uh, well, here's a pen nib that I actually got not because I particularly liked it, but someone said that Charles Schultz drew peanuts with this pen nib,
Oh, okay.
and I thought, well, that's stupid. I mean, usually if you have like, you don't go up to people and say, "Hey, I like your drawings. What kind of pencil do you use?"
Yeah.
Because that's just dumb, you know. But I did that, and then there was another guy who did another. I think it was this one. He did a comic strip, and he happened to mention the pen that he used, and I went out and bought that too. And I thought, well, I'm repeating myself. That's pretty stupid. But then I saw an interview with a Pixar director who also liked that same cartoonist and said he had gone out to buy a pen nib.
Okay.
So I thought, well, it's catching. Okay, I'm not so
Okay.
bad. But then I have, since my name is Alfred, I actually kind of uh, went to these Alfred nibs and bought up about 6 of them or so, and I really enjoy them. But the trouble is, with these kind of dip pens, unless it has something special, like this one, I really liked a lot. I'm not sure if it's focused really well, but it's got a structure that curves around and it holds a lot of ink.
Okay.
And I like this because I could just keep drawing and not have to keep
Yeah.
dipping back
Well,
in.
yeah. Most of the pens that you seem to be showing seem to have a feed-like thing under them.
Yeah,
Looks
like
like.
this one has like a spring. And I
Okay.
thought, well, that's dandy.
Yeah.
So, but then I was taking drawing classes at the Animation Union here in Los Angeles, and the teacher was encouraging people to draw with pens. And he said, there's an Art Technique sketch pen. It's only like $18.
Yeah.
And
Made by Rotring, right?
yeah, I think it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And he said, if you combine that and one of these brush pens and take the ink and water it down like 50%, you can come in, do your drawing, and then come and splash some tone on it.
Yeah.
And you can use that as a good travel kit to go sketch for sketching.
Yeah.
And so I like that because I had been using a pencil and I draw halfway with the eraser. And whereas the pen makes you be decisive about
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. You have to.
So that was a change. But the thing that prompted me to come to you was that I have retired from animation
Okay.
and I've been cultivating letterpress. My wife and I have two presses in the garage and about 400 fonts of type.
Oh, nice.
And wood engraving is a really good complement to having a block of type.
Yeah.
And I found that there's this group of people called the Wood Engravers Group, and I've gotten good clues from them about the aesthetics and the craft,
Uh,
and began to contribute to that group. So here's one of the images I just did last fall. It's called Goethe's Daffodils.
okay.
Goethe, the German philosopher, had a house that was surrounded by daffodils, and they come up through the snow. And because it's like an overcast German, trees are denuded, the snow isn't pretty, it's just kind of yucky spring snow. And he'd gone out to look at flowers, they just captured him because they were color. And he stared at them for so long that when he turned, the image stayed in his retina as it would like a flash bulb going
Yeah.
off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was the image of the flowers, but not yellow. It was light magenta. And he said, I'm writing stuff on color, talking to Newton, and he doesn't talk about this at all. What's going on? So it prompted him to do that. And I thought, oh, that would be a good. I was
Yeah.
doing
I have
March for a calendar. Yeah.
I have a lovely leather-bound, limp leather bound book in German by Goethe on color.
Oh, really? Yeah,
Not-
yeah.
Not that I've ever read it, but
Well, good luck. I heard
I mean, I have a
quote-
copy of it in English too, and it's boring. But
Well, I heard a quote from Mark Twain that said, God gave us eternity so that we'd have a chance to understand what the Germans mean.
that's pretty funny.
Oh, I don't know if you are subscribing to ARP, but just to completely change the subject,
No,
ARP
no.
had a small article that said, the National Archives is looking for Americans with the dying skill of reading cursive handwriting.
Oh, okay.
Volunteer. Yes?
To read to help with the National Archives, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
About
I did hear
9,000
about that. Yeah.
they're willing to transcribe digitized copies of nearly 160 million in the archives files going back to the Revolutionary War. So this might be the audience to pay attention to that one. But the point is that in wood engraving, there's a real consideration for line quality. Whereas in animation, if I had line quality, it would be stamped down because it would jitter.
It would jitter too much. Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to be kind of as calm and quiet a line as you can. You may want to feather things out, but not as a matter of habit. So in doing wood engraving, it's been important to try to learn how to do curves and things. Let me just take this.
I screwed up a wood engraving I was supposed to do by using wood burner.
Oh,
I thought, well,
no.
I can't do that. It'll be fuzzy.
Yes. And
That didn't necessarily bother me as an idea for the particular thing I was doing. Um, I was going to make a drawing of Schrodinger's cat, and I'll send you an image of it. But I didn't feel comfortable using these sharp tools, and I thought maybe a wood burner could work, but anyway. Todd Merrill asks, Proust captured eternity in his writing, 3 pages about a veranda and 3 pages too much.
I'll buy that. Yes, these
yeah.
are quite sharp tools.
Yeah.
And Ray Gleckler, who was the teacher of wood engraving in
Yeah.
Madison,
Yeah.
said he had seen a demonstration where someone showed how you ought not to hold the block and push your tool toward your hand because it had impaled somebody.
Yeah.
And he described it so clearly, I couldn't tell if it was him or he had witnessed somebody else do it, but I've never done it myself. So anyway, the idea of thinking and building a more sensitive note to thick and thin has grown out of the need to be able to carve letters. And I thought if I used a fountain pen to draw with,
Yeah.
it would soften me to the sensitivities of how to do that.
Yeah. Good. And has it?
Yes, it has. So this is another thing that's in progress. But what I've been doing is, oh, yes, sorry.
No,
I think I mailed you an aspect of this. It was that I've been practicing around with this kind of thick and thin kind of stuff. Oh, and this is a word that you've given me. I really appreciate that.
Which
From
one?
May
Parif?
5th, Parif.
Parif, yeah.
Yeah. So this kind of, I've just called them flourishes before, but thought, oh, there must be something I could do with that. Maybe I could make it as a thought balloon for somebody. And then, well, if I took it in Photoshop and reversed it, yeah, that's what it would probably look like.
Yeah.
But then I thought, well, who would have flourishes? Well, Reynolds Stone is a really good stone cutter and a typographer and letterer. He used to do this all the time. So I went and collected stuff out of one of his books and thought, oh, this would be interesting because it's the two of Reynolds Stone was a guy who was such a good stone cutter and letterer that they asked him to carve the big green block that went into Westminster Abbey for Winston Churchill. And this was him as he was inspecting the last bits of it. But when he was there, Stanley Morrison came by, who was a generation ahead of him.
Okay.
And then his Stone's wife took this photo, and I thought, if I flipped it around, it looks like they're kind of both contemplating. I could have the two of them doing it.
Oh, neat.
So
I think Eric Gill also did a lot of flourishes on the things he carved.
Yes.
So,
in fact, that actually leads to another thing. But so that's what I'm working on here, is doing the flourishes. And I was just at a workshop for the wood engravers in Washington, D.C. We meet someplace different every year. And I was getting hints because you can very easily crush one side of the line if you're trying to curve this, because what's happening is you're not so much drawing the curve as you're holding your tool steady and bending the wood.
Yeah.
But as you do it, if you're turned in the wrong direction with your tool, you have to kind of dive into it to save it. So there's a whole skill to it. That's why as I got this far in the course of the workshop, people were going like, "Man, you were just speeding through that stuff." So I got a lot of grief for my speed on that. But it's helping to build a sensitivity and
Nice.
appreciation.
Can you tell us some of the animations you've worked on?
Yeah, it sums up to be about 300 to 400 commercials, part of this complete breakfast. 17 features, animated features where they needed a crew of effects people.
Okay.
And then as that faded out and things went digital, I went and crawled up on the shore of The Simpsons. And I was working on The Simpsons drawing special effects for 14 years and retired
wow.
2 years ago. The features would be let's see. I worked on at Bluth in Dublin. I went over to work on Amblin Films, Feifel Goes West at Amblin in London. I came back and worked on things for Turner Feature Animation because he was doing stuff at the time. And that led over to the people that I worked with in London helping to form DreamWorks. And so then the DreamWorks people called and said, "We're working on Prince of Egypt. Do you want to work on that with us?" And I said, "Sure, that sounds great." So I worked on the first 5 features at DreamWorks when it still had that new car smell, and then worked on the Simpsons movie, Curious George movie, lots of different projects, and even like some live action features that had effects, like
Okay.
Bill and Ted's Big Adventure. That just they had things that happened as they were traveling, and so yeah, it's been a good thing. I've been able to work pretty steady, except for going to school from 1975, and then going back to school to get my degree, and then getting into Cal Arts and growing into their now kind of legendary character animation program, and being taught by all these old guys from Disney, which was really fascinating. I mean, they were all people who graduated from school in 1929, 1930,
Oh dear.
and their training was from people who really didn't know how to draw. So, whereas, I would go to, when I began college in 1971, they said, "Well, we're just drawing figures because, it's traditional, but we could just as easily arrange flower pots and stuff, and it'd be the same thing. If you're really interested in anatomy, there's classes like that over in science department." I thought, well, that doesn't sound right, because they didn't know. They didn't know how to draw. So that wasn't part of the deal. So when I was suddenly at Cal Arts, I was meeting people who were brilliant and could teach you how to do stuff and how to stop and analyze what you're doing and back up and fix it. So it was very, very helpful. And I was really happy to have been able to access the tail end of their careers. So
Now, with animation now, of course, they don't use acetate things.
no, not for years.
So when did that go away?
I would peg it at around 1997, 98.
There's a woman that used to live across the hall from me in Boston. She now lives in Providence, Rhode Island, and gets many awards for her animations that she does. And she does use the computer sometimes, but she loves just drawing on film.
Yeah.
Drawing on film, one frame at a time. And but she also draws, scans things in, puts them in the computer, adds background colors or whatever she's doing. I'll send you a link of some of her stuff. I think you might get a kick out of them. So do you ever just grab a sketchbook and go outside and draw out the palm trees or whatever?
I have kept sketchbooks since 1968.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
The answer is yes. And sometimes it it's just because I'm thinking about, oh, here's a problem. I'm really terrified that I'm going to spill my bottle of ink and dump things out. And in these old catalogs, they'll tell you like, oh, or like how to work in a shop. They'll say cover it over and pin it down with pegs or stick pins, and that'll keep it safe. But I was thinking, well, there's got to be a better way to that. And it was, where did it go? Oh, here. Yeah. I found out this. Do you know the name of it? It's Eugene Dietzen Company.
Dietzen, yeah.
Dietzen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dietzen made this thing that will hold a Higgins bottle
Yeah.
and not much else. And you can drop it in, it threads up, and it's heavy. And it'll hold you'd have to really work hard
To tip
to
it
tip
over.
it over.
I
So-
do have one of the Dietzen things like that actually was a weighted base with that the Higgins bottle would be set into. It wasn't screwed down like that,
Mhm.
but that had this bent wire arm coming out, and what it would do, you would, this is when you'd use the dip pens, you'd hit the bottom of the wire with your hand and the cap would come up
Oh,
and leave a little drop of ink right ready to go to, is that what that is? Yes, that thing.
I saw this in a junk store in Santa Barbara,
Yeah.
and the fellow there said, "Oh yeah, this came out of my dad's shop. Not a shop. He had like a whole business that was doing architectural work." And he said, "We did Disneyland. We did all the drawings for Disneyland. This was probably used at the time to do those blueprints."
Yeah.
And he said, "Yeah, and Disney wanted my dad to like form a construction company and build the place, but he had seen the plans. He knew how hard they were. He said, no, you need to get somebody else to do that. You may like me, but we won't be friends if we do this." So this is somehow like faintly related to the Disney company. So things stay in the family. But yes,
good.
it's got this thing that you can adjust to go deep. It has a wire that's wrapped around it to hold ink,
Yeah.
and it's weighted enough
And you
and
just,
tagged.
what you do then, again, for the people that don't know how dip pens work, you're just able to put the nib underneath that, and then the ink is transferred from that spike onto the nib,
Mhm.
and you don't have to unscrew the thing. You don't have to worry about
Uncorking it and things like
uncorking
that.
it and spilling it, and it's just really, really cool.
And it's got a rubber flange there, so it doesn't
Yeah.
dry out.
Yeah.
So anyway, I pulled that out. I don't use this very often at all, except
Yeah.
for fun. But it's funny you would mention that.
So you do go outside, though. We're getting back
Oh
to
yeah,
you draw just what you see. Now, are you in LA proper?
yes. I'm at the collision of Los Angeles and Santa Monica and Culver City.
Okay.
So we're
So-
over on the west side. We're on the
Yeah.
it's the west side of the 405 freeway. So it's
That
always cooler.
people from your neck of the woods would understand that. I've only been there a couple of times, and my geography of that place is not good. But have you been to the LA Pen Show?
I went in April, and I think I picked up my third or fourth pen. I don't know. Oh yeah, it's but it was very fascinating
Okay.
because in much the same way that you go anywhere, you'll suddenly see that although you think everybody would have the same interests,
Yeah.
it kind of divides into two. I would
Yeah.
go up to places and say, "Oh, I really have heard your company. I'm really interested in something." And they go like, "Oh, no, we just bought the old designs and we're making these new. You want to
Yeah.
go see the vintage people." So the vintage people and the new people kind of like had their own mental turfs or
It,
something.
it sounds like a horror movie. The attack of the people.
But it was really exciting because I was able to meet the fellow that you had
Oh yeah,
had a
yeah.
whole
Scott Peterson.
show.
Yeah, yeah.
And I thought, I kind of stopped dead in my tracks when I saw his booth and said, "Oh, I know who you are." And he looked at me like, uh, you know, like the way that stars look at fans that come on too fast or
Yeah.
something. It's like, no, I tried to explain it. No, 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 no. I admired the fact that you did all this stuff. That was kind of fun.
Yes,
So,
Jones is fun. I like him.
well, when I go on vacations, I usually take a special sketchbook with me, and I'll see if I can do this right. We went to Italy, and we're able to do all these, go to all these Florence and Rome and things.
Yeah.
We were in Amsterdam, and this is actually a Photoshop amalgamation of this girl and the rest of the place. She had to go, so I was able to put them together. But this Photoshop is marvelous at fixing things.
Yeah.
So she was a wonderful model because she didn't move except for her little finger,
Yeah.
which was playing with a game or something.
Yeah.
And her parents wondered why I was staring at their daughter. Perfectly reasonable. And then
Yeah.
I was showing them what I was up to, and they were like, "Oh, look what he did." And she was not happy. She did not think this was complimentary at all. So,
Dear.
what are you going to do? I'm going to do this. I have to
So
adjust something.
did you buy another couple of pens when you were at the LA show?
I bought one, and it was an Esterbrook.
An old
Esterbrook,
okay. Yeah.
like a, come on, like a, I'm trying to read it, like a 3128,
Yeah.
kind of very flexy thing. So,
Well, they're steel nibs, so their flexiness is going to sort of go away after a fashion.
okay.
So,
What is a better one for longevity to that? Is it gold?
gold is always better, I think.
Ah,
It doesn't corrode. It's the springiness shouldn't go away. Estabrooks make great pens, and they're the nibs. They have 3 or 4 different nib varieties. The 1000 series are pretty crappy. The 2000 are good. The 9000s are great, and they just were made of better metals. And but what's nice about that pen is you can unscrew a nib and screw a new one in. So you don't have to buy an extra pen for that. So,
well, this was these drawings were done using this Artec sketch pen and
Okay.
my brush pen,
okay.
because we were walking through Rome, and they had all of these. I found out later they're called stone pine, and they
Oh.
have these kind of like green clouds that drift up, mixed in compositionally with cypresses. So
Yeah.
you get these verticals and horizontals
Yeah.
and this is what Respighi's Pines of Rome was about.
Okay.
I never figured that out until I was actually walking around
Those
in
pines
them.
from yes.
But so this was just kind of like one day and another day and another day and another day, and just kind of working things out. And this was my daughter, who's kind of like, she trained to a pre-professional level of ballet, being the stone pine, and my son being more of a cypress. So that's kind of fun. But then, you'd be looking at things and just go like, oh, these are Etruscan things. These are really interesting shapes. Look at the negative shapes on things.
Yeah.
Why, this is a kind of the same way that people work in typography, where you're working with what makes that a good shape. How does you get those elbow curves that do things? I need to build a repertory of shapes that I can just deploy as part of an armory or something, like an alphabet of shapes.
Yeah.
But then you just suddenly see stuff like outside our little bed and breakfast. This little vehicle could come by. It was about half as wide as a Volkswagen, and
Okay.
it was a cleaner. It would go up
Yeah.
and down the alley, and they had this little thing in the back. It was like a witch broom that,
And
that
they,
and you go, huh? That's because the day started off funny because it's usually had motorcycles throughout the alley, and then one day they weren't there, and that's the day they cleaned. So, or heading off to the Saturn Temple in the Forum. It's really
yeah,
got,
yeah. I I'm looking forward to maybe going to Italy next year. One of my neighbors in Boston runs a group of artists that go to somewhere in Tuscany for 2 weeks, and they stay
oh,
at a monastery. So everyone has a little cell that they sleep in,
uh-huh.
and then they have catered food, dinner and breakfast. I suspect, and lunches you're on your own, and it's excluding airfare. It was something like $5,000 for 2 weeks, and that seemed like a bargain to me.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and so I'm going to try to get my my passport hooked up again. But who knows?
I would recommend it just because being in some place different and also being in a place where there's just been so much art for
Yeah,
so many years, they just kind of have to call it archaeology because
yeah,
it's just stacked up on top of each other. But then there's just the stuff that you see that you like just ordinary people walking down the
yeah,
street wearing those puffy jackets. This was
yeah.
in December, but there was this one woman who's like, I fought for this waist. I'm going to take this and cinch it up so that I do not look like all the rest of you puffy people. And you go like, that's character. I really
Yeah.
like that.
The
That's
the
funny.
attack of the puffy people. That's the sequel to the attack of the vintage people. Um,
Or
I'm going to ask people in the room. We've got seven, not many. I'm going to ask them if they have any questions for you. Uh,
sure,
well, they start that. I'll be right back. I'm
sure.
going to get another beer, so I'll be right back. So,
Cheers.
uh,
I'll flip through these just so I can
yeah.
get.
Now you these are glossy things. You scan them in and print them out. So
I print them out, but this is in a brown sketchbook. That's right.
oh, I see. So and you're doing it just so you don't you don't destroy the sketchbook. The integrity of the book is still there, but you
Well, sometimes you want to be able to uh, add things in, like
yeah,
here,
postcards and stuff. Yeah,
like what is the context of things, and
yeah.
uh, like we were in a place where you would walk into the church and there'd be a big mirror, and the mirror would look up, and the view was
Oh, I see.
this
That
the this is Saint Augustine ascending into heaven, but none of this exists as a thing. It's mostly painted from the windows
yeah, yeah. The
up.
ploy
It was
stuff.
because this was the Jesuits clubhouse in Rome, but they wanted to build it 2 stories. But the Dominicans next door just installed stained glass, and it would wreck their light. So they said, no, you can't do that. And I guess they had more say at the time, so they had to just pretend that it was taller.
Yeah,
And but
and
seeing stuff like that, you go, oh right, I've heard of this guy Pozo, who'd
yeah.
worked out all the math for how to do that. Um, so yeah, it was.
So there are two questions for you. Todd Merrill asks three questions. I don't know if you can see the comments when you're
Oh
looking at them.
no, is there a way to tap in to do
No,
that?
well, I'll just read them for you.
Okay, sure.
Todd asks, what projects are you proudest of working on? And another one is, and who is your favorite animator? And do you have a favorite artist? So
Oh
you think about that.
well,
I'll be right back to hear your answers. So
okay.
I'll just get my beer over. Okay.
Okay, well, perhaps I could explain that. Are you outside? It looks like a glass top table.
It is a glass table. It's inside though.
Ah,
It's in our kitchen at our lake house, and so, but outside is 6 feet that way.
makes sense. Well, I should explain that the places I was born in Billings, Montana, and then I went to high school in Racine, Wisconsin. And in either place, if you went to the art section of the library, they did not have art books. I mean, I think they were afraid that somebody of an impressionable age would see something and
Like
they would warp them forever or
Like-
something.
boobs on naked ladies.
I can only imagine. So when you went to the art section, what you would find is cartoon books. And
Okay.
so I would check out all the cartoon books that I could find. And this was one of the first ones that was really important to me, was Saul Steinberg's
You know,
book, Passport.
if you weren't already married, I'd be on my knees right now proposing to you, because Saul Steinberg is my first artist influence as well. We had a book, or my parents had a book of his, and maybe I should go get it. It's 20 feet away from me. But Saul Steinberg is amazing. He is just amazing.
Now, if you do not, the name doesn't ring well. He did a lot of New Yorker covers,
Yeah.
and he did he did that famous The View of America from Second
New-
Avenue or something.
New Yorker's view of the world. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's sort of like there's the Hudson River, and there's a few things, and there's a dot over by Denver, and there's something in San Francisco, and maybe a billboard in Los Angeles, and then Japan across
And then-
a little
and
bit of
then-
one,
Yeah. Yeah.
and maybe the Kremlin, and that's it. But he would do these drawings where he would like that. That's a really good portrait of somebody, but he would do stuff where he would make, like, I mean, just what we're talking about. Like, how would you describe somebody with a pen? And and this was approachable to me.
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
see as a kid of 13 or 14 that these were funny. They communicated a lot. He
Without
played,
without having a caption or a word.
yeah,
And they
yeah,
didn't have a plot, really. It was just this snippet of society and how he was able to capture, the crowded beach of Coney Island and the subway train, and it just amazing. Well, so see
Yeah.
you
okay.
see your favorite art.
I would say he occupied a central role at a certain point in my life. But then I also saw Ronald Searle, and I started to see his books and began to collect them all. And his drawings were just so delightful. He didn't mind if his ink pen splattered. He
Yeah.
kind of looks like he didn't care if he splattered. Not like Ron Stedman, but
Yeah.
it was all part of the show, and he was able to really accomplish a lot. He did lots of travel journals. He would travel to Russia or Paris or the United States, and his impressions of the United States were biting. But he actually came and was invited to Disney by Disney because he was going to be in town, and he hung out with all the animators, and they got along famously.
Good.
He had done a whole series of things that were quite popular in the 50s of the girls of St. Trinians, who were the most wicked girls in the world. And partly it was based on the fact that he had been part of the surrender of Singapore and had been a prisoner of war to the Japanese all through World War II, and had worked on that railroad that was the bridge over the River Kwai kind of stuff. And he translated, well, actually, he made drawings while a POW, and they used to hide them under the pillows of people with real serious communicable diseases. And so the Japanese wouldn't go near them. At the end of the war, he was able to bring all of his drawings from the war, and they had a huge exhibition in London, and it kind of made his career. And suddenly he was off and running. And St. Trinian's was really popular. It's like people kind of like said, yeah, this is actually a part of our culture we don't want to talk about. But in the same sense, then stepping back a generation or two before them, H.M. Bateman was a guy who drew for the mostly magazines. He did really wonderful kind of character study things with pen and ink, but he became famous for doing these things called The Man Who.
Okay.
Trying to find one in particular.
Yeah,
Oh,
I don't know that.
yeah.
I don't know.
He-
The only one I knew, was Steinberg. I did these other two that you're talking about. I don't really know
Well,
yet.
he
But
would
I'm
do-
sure I've seen them.
he would do things where it was the man who, and it was somebody who does this minor social infraction, like the woman who went into the store and asked for rabbit instead of mink or something, and people just faint. They go. In some cases, it's just people nearby reacting with a kind of like what, and then people further away kind of being appalled, and then the sky and the clouds like gasping in horror. So it's all about manners, and that was pretty funny. But in terms of people now, I really like Edward Searle. He was big in the 60s and did great caricatures, and he I like the fact that he would just keep working the line until it kind of found its form.
Yeah. Neat.
Yeah.
In terms of drawing, certain Steinberg is my favorite, but I also love sort of an opposite of him would be, well, the Gibson girls, Charles Dana Gibson. It's a fluid line, beautifully rendered things. Montgomery Flagg, illustrators from the World War I era. I like a cartoonist that I've always admired the drawings of is Winsor McCay.
Oh yeah.
Nemo, and how some of his pictures, Nemo and his buddies are in this crazy mechanical environment, and they're inside of a pocket watch. And all the gears are looking at you sideways rather than straight down. And his ability to command perspective in such a realistic yet playful way. I mean, the image was realistic, but the whole subject was playful. Was, I think, really fun.
And the spillover is he went from there to also animating and making Gertie the dinosaur.
Yeah. Which was the first animated movie, right?
Pretty much, as far as I know. I mean, there might have been shorter things, but this is he would appear on stage in vaudeville and appear in a tuxedo, and the curtains would part, and he would instruct the dinosaur what to do.
Oh yes,
and then it would misbehave, and he would scold it, and it would be ashamed, and then he would get angry and walk off stage, and its head would go beyond the curtain and bring him back up on top of her head and walk off. When I went to Cal Arts in 1979, my figure drawing teacher was a really old guy named Elmer Plummer, and he was a really good friend of Disney himself, and they'd been through a lot. And I didn't really know what to talk to about, like you just think like, what do you say to old people? Like, how do you make a bridge from somebody who's in their 20s to 70?
We are in that position now, young man.
Exactly. So now it's like, just say anything. So I said, well, Elmer, can you tell me what the first film is you remember ever seeing? He said, my dad took me and Mary and Preston Blair as kids. I said, wait a minute, Preston Blair, the guy that did the whole How to Animate book? Like that's the one you would see the Foster books, How to
Uh-huh.
Animate. That was Preston Blair's book. Mary Blair is like the woman who designed It's a Small World ride at Disneyland.
Okay.
And she's like a spectacular character. Her name is Mary Blair, but during the 50s, people sometimes called her Mary Jane Blair. So from her pot use, but he knew each other as kids, and he said my father took us to see this movie, and this guy came out on stage, and then he like made a dinosaur act. He said, "Wait a minute, you saw Winsor McCay on stage playing Gertie the dinosaur?" He said, "Yes."
Oh, wow.
And Elmer Plummer also taught like John Lasseter and Brad Bird and um, Tim Burton, all these people who went out and did computer stuff. He had seen in his lifetime a bridge from Winsor McCay all the way to Toy Story. So
Nice.
it's amazing to think about somebody whose life contained an entire art form.
Yeah.
That's
Did you ever see Winsor McCay's Lusitania movie?
yeah.
That's
Well,
pretty amazing. Yeah.
he was politically kind of conservative at the end of his life. He was
Yeah.
kind of like doing stuff that was like kind of, well, it'd be hard to get behind, but yeah, anyway, but he was remarkable as a talent and
Yeah.
undeniable.
My our cabin is now we have some house guests arriving, so things might get kind of noisy.
Okay.
Who's that? Is that? It looks like.
Gustave Doré.
I was going to say it looks like Gustave Doré.
I was putting this down because he is somebody I've grown to admire a lot. And I'm not sure if I can pick it up quite,
Yeah.
but you can see that his sense about how these lines work, how to build forms out of things. He's a guy I'm currently really interested in terms of how to work building these kinds of shapes. This is so different than thinking about it from animation point of view,
Yeah.
where you're just thinking about form and moving it. Any kind of detail is unacceptable.
Yeah.
You can't have texture,
Yeah.
and this is nothing but. So this is another reason why I'm kind of emphasizing why I'm interested in pens that can make me think in that way.
Those sorts of lines. Yeah, and I'm wondering, did Gustave Doré actually get out those tools and engrave on copper, or did he come up with the design and then other people did that?
It could be in both cases. He was a good engraver himself, but there were people who were available to clear away his drawings in the way that it should. Actually, there's a whole word for it. It's German, of course. It's a Formschneider.
Formschneider, yes.
Formschneider would be somebody who would like looks at Albert Durer's drawing on the block and just clears away what's not his lines.
Yeah.
But that's a different kind of attitude than coming in to use light to create form, which is a different thing than drawing a pen line and clearing away everything that's in the background.
Yeah.
So it's a different sensibility, and that's where Thomas Buick in wood engraving is kind of like the pivot. He used what was called white line. Previous, it was called black line. So that sense about how to, of course, I end up drawing like that and then putting it in Photoshop and flipping it around to see what it would look like.
Yes.
But it's kind of interesting. And I think I wanted to just show you a few other things that are current. This is by a woman who lives in Bath named Hilary Painter. She's quite a remarkable engraver, but she's able to use her tool with just short little snips or making tufts of things to build an image of lots and lots of donkeys. So it's really kind of fun to see what kind of texture she can get. But also, she did this too.
Oh dear. I can see who that is.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, um, I I have a question about. It was on the tip of my brain and now it's gone. Uh, Shoot, where did it go? Um, Maybe it'll come back to me. Um,
Well, I know we talked about drawing, but I think um, you can kind of see that we're going over a bunch of stuff as to why I think these pens are really helpful as tools. Um, the way that they could spill into drawing improvement, and why I'm so grateful that you're there and you've given so much information or opinions
yeah.
about about the whole
Yeah.
process. It's been really interesting, and I
Yeah, I think it's fun. And when I get back to Boston, I'd be happy to send out another couple of pens for you to play with too. I chose the two I sent you. I know you only wanted the one, and I
Mm,
wanted to give you the option to see was a different, the fine line Schaefer was a different kettle of fish, but I can see that is something that you might also enjoy. So,
yeah. Well, I think that I'd asked for that originally, and then for something else that might fit in instead of um, I think I was uncertain as to what the Skyline was going for or the ones
yeah,
you had, and it seemed like there was a surplus. I'd rather have like something else to go with it, and I think that's where we
okay.
kind of were working.
Um, the uh, Let's see if there's any other questions here. Um, you didn't talk about your favorite animation project of your own.
Oh, well, mostly when you sign on to these things, you become part of a big machine,
Yeah.
and the whole process is staggered out and starts with story and works its way down to effects. And the it fits in that there's backgrounds which are solid, they're usually painted,
Yeah.
and then there's characters that are moving around. But there's times when the characters intrude onto the background. Somebody falls in a pond,
Yeah.
somebody catches something on fire and it starts to flame. And in that case, you're one of the I can avoid having to do the book because this fellow is an effects animator at Disney who actually was explaining how we take side of the pencil and rough things out to make things say splash and
Okay.
then transform it into a fine line drawing, and then that line drawing gets copied over, and then there's a whole senses of design that, and this is kind of hard to see, but um, the flowering of a splash, it
Yeah.
erupts and then cascades down. These were things that mm, where we would do stuff like you'd have stuff spilling
Yeah.
down, and you'd have to figure out the momentum, the mass, the weight, the design, the flow. And
Hmm.
so all those things of were design problems, and very mind consuming, and they took a lot of time. And so by the time I got back on the road and drove an hour home again, I wasn't interested in working on my own film. There
Yeah.
are people who do. There are people who now retired and are now working on another film just of their own.
Yeah.
But there's I mean, there are venues to show them, but it's usually so
Yeah.
much work. I'd rather go to do something like I'm doing now
Okay.
of a
Yeah. I don't know
a
whether what Todd was asking about a personal project you're doing rather than a particular job you
oh,
particularly enjoyed. But
I would say
uh,
probably Prince of Egypt was at the top of the realm, just
okay.
because I got pulled out of the ranks of all the animators working because the guy that was supervising the department started working on the next film, and because there was nobody there to answer all these people, there's like 50 people in this department. They asked me to take over the department, so I was both animating and making sure that the field was filled with activity and we got our numbers at the end of the week.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
a way to get out of the trench and see it at a higher level and then say, yeah, thank you. I'm stepping back because I really like drawing. I really like the design problems. I don't like the the administration part of it.
Well, that's what kills uh, the love of being a teacher at a university. You like to teach students how to paint. You don't want to go to those academic meetings with the teachers to discuss all the crap you have to discuss.
Mm,
You've,
mm.
um, I see that we have another Californian that just joined the room. Cesar is or Caesar uh, is a um, new vintage pen collector.
Ah,
I met him at the Philly show, I mean, at the LA show 2 years ago. And he and his wife are gonna come and visit me in Boston, I think in October, I think. Um, uh, I think I would like to have another one. Do you think you can do this another time, Al?
I'm up for it. Yeah,
Be a
maybe
guest?
actually do some drawing. You mean?
And maybe we can just might be fun maybe to draw something together, not the same thing, but maybe
Mhm.
just take out our Eversharp Skyline pens and you can be drawing one kind of thing and I'll be drawing another kind of thing and we can gossip about people while we're drawing.
That sounds like fun.
Uh,
There is something, and I honestly don't know if it's still continuing, but about 15 years ago, there was something called Sketch Crawl. Have you ever heard of that?
uh,
It's like International Sketch Crawl Day, and
yeah.
cities all over the world, like dozens of them, would have some place where artists would meet, and then you would walk down a path, someplace that's interesting in the city, drawing as a group.
Yeah.
And then they would all end up at the end of a restaurant or something. Someone brought a scanner. They would scan all their drawings in and load them up to the International Sketch Crawl
Oh, neat.
website. And I can still go and find things, but Pixar people used to show up at the San Francisco one all the time. And so rather than going out in public and drawing and looking like an odd person, it's suddenly there's a gang of 50 people and nobody bothers
Well,
50 people.
well, another group that you do have in LA is the Los Angeles Urban Sketchers group,
Mm,
and they meet perhaps every weekend. They pick a day and a time and a location, and 20 or 30 people will show up and draw for 2 hours. So Urban Sketchers Los Angeles or LA, take a look at that.
okay.
The Boston one, each chapter has different rules about how they do it, but the Boston one meets every week. The Minneapolis one meets every 2 weeks. Philly meets every 2 weeks. But it's a worldwide organization. So when I travel places, I will find whether that town or country, not that I've been in another country in a while, but where I can meet other drawers. And it's
Mm,
really, really fun thing
yes.
to do. And and then we post them on Instagram or a Facebook. And the motto of that group is showing the world one drawing at a time. So it's really quite fun.
Are you able to evangelize for pen drawing?
I 9 times out of 10, I'm using my iPad to draw.
Ah,
And
okay.
and the drawings I do on my iPad, I think you must have seen them. I must have are you following me on Instagram and that nonsense, or are you not doing?
I am not on Instagram, so
Uh,
I should be. Everybody else is. So, but thank
well,
you. I'll get the
it's a
prompt.
it's a fun way to share drawings, and I like it in many ways better than Facebook because I don't feel I have to type anything or respond to people uh, that maybe make a comment. It's a little easier to just show what you do without having to feel you have to interact. So
Yeah.
I don't mind interacting. I think it's fine. It's just I think the word is on Instagram you follow people. On Facebook you have to friend them. And
Mm.
that's a little hurdle,
Mhm.
sometimes because you don't know who do you do is that the sort of relationship I have with this person I've never met before in my entire life? So, uh, but I think uh, I think you can even you just using your browser, or you can find Facebook without having to be a member of Facebook or something. And then you can search for Urban Sketchers LA and you can see what people post.
Thank you.
So, and I learned about urban sketching at a pen show, selling a pen to one of the sketchers. So I do it's these crazy things that brought me to them and what reconnected me with you, and they are these magical things. Um, so I'm gonna. Oh, there we are.
Okay.
There we go. So
Now,
what? So what?
here's my divide: the old and the new.
Okay. Well, they're all. They all do great work in your talented hands, and Al, it was really fun having you on here. And I'll send you an email or something about how we could maybe do something differently next time.
Yes.
And what I have done with people, I've invited 3 people, all to be drawing at the same time and talking. And there's might be someone I could think of that might be willing to be a nice third person in the group. So
Well,
we'll
you've been
figure
very
it out.
patient. I know I've shown and told a lot of things more than actually performed. So that, and they
Well,
may be different, but since we really never, I think you described us as being at the thinnest of Venn diagram overlaps. Uh, and I thought, yeah, that's actually pretty true. Since we have never really discussed anything, this seems like a very good chance to at least catch up. And
yeah,
so,
and it was really, the things that you talked about. I really don't know animation very well, so some things might not have stuck as well as they might have. But when you brought out that Saul Steinberg book, I was looking on eBay trying to find a proposal ring for you, big diamond.
I am flattered. Thank you very much.
Anyway, you be good. I'm going to say goodbye to everyone. This was a
Okay.
lot of fun. Let's do this again sometime.
Thank
Thumbs
you.
up. Bye bye.
All right.
Bye
Take
bye.
care. Bye.
Bye everyone.